And to be honest, there were some people who said, Howard, this is not a subject we should touch. This is not for you. This is not for a company. This is for someone else. I reject that. I reject that completely, because we can't leave this for someone else.
Well, Starbucks Chairman CEO Howard Schultz talking about why he's given his baristas the option to start conversations about race. Joining me now, Nancy Giles, contributor of CBS Sunday Morning, and Jay Smooth, media strategist for Race Forward, not the same, like...
different kind of race?
Yeah. And a video blogger at the Fusion Network. Okay, so before I give my own feeling on this, I shall open the floor to Nancy. What do you think of it?
You know, it's easy to make fun of him.
It is easy to make fun of him.
And there are some very funny tweets, including one that had to do with people racing to the counter to get coffee, ha ha ha. But look, the bottom line is, it's something that really does need to be talked about. And you made a point during the break, I don't want to like spill what you were saying, but the whole conversation about race concept as a concept is kind of clunky and stupid. But we've got to talk and start somewhere. And I think it's really kind of cowardly to just make fun and mock it and not try to get something started. Frankly, one thing that is fact is that under President Obama, the number of hate groups in this country has gone up by like 700-something%. That's according to the Southern
Poverty Law Center.
Yeah, I mean, these are serious things. We're living in serious times. I think the first black president has brought up a lot of stuff in people that's churning up and bubbling over, and it's worthy of talking about, however sloppily.
That, you know, that's that you made the best possible case for it, Jay.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree the intentions seem noble, and I want to keep an open mind, but I think there's already this strange fixation on conversation when it comes to race that you don't see with other issues that we want to take seriously. I think it's telling that when Howard Schultz wanted to help veterans, he didn't just tell people to have conversations about how much they like veterans. He committed to a plan of action to help veterans, and I think there's lots of conversation. You know, he talked about being inspired by what went on in Ferguson and other places, but if you look at the DOJ report on Ferguson, it does not describe issues that can be addressed by increasing the number of chats in coffee shops. We're talking about institutional, systemic issues that you need to find.
But for people who don't even think there's a problem, I think at least talking about it is a step.
Yeah, but I think the emphasis on talking about it misleads us about where the problems are, because this focus on conversation comes out of our assumption that racism manifests on a personal level in our individual feelings towards each other.
That's part of it, not all of it.
Sentiments.
Yeah.
But we need to be looking at the systemic institutional level.
I don't disagree
at
all.
Part of it, I think, gets at this thing about race. When we talk about, I think this point about a conversation about race is that we tend to think of race, when we talk about race, a conversation about race, like in the way that you would, in a psychoanalytic sense, think about like a patient with neuroses, right? Like it's like a national neuroses, and the talking cure,
talk therapy
will cure us of the neuroses. It's a repressed thing, but if we talk about it, right?
That's not how
then
I
it will
think of
come
it.
out, and that will be therapeutic.
Right. I think that
but
you're
it's just
right.
a set of power arrangements based on white supremacy.
Exactly.
that have distributed power to some people and locked other people
if
out
we're
of
going
it.
to have a conversation that's focused on identifying systemic problems and acting to change them, that's great. But if we're going to be talking so that we can feel better about talking to each other, I don't really think that's productive.
But
and that tends to be what conversations about race are.
That's not been always my experience. I mean, sometimes just illuminating people that I am 6'1", I am a black woman, and if I get in an elevator sometimes and I'm alone and a white person sees me in the elevator, they won't get on the elevator. I mean, this is something that might not seem like a big deal to some people, but I mean, there's like a real kind of breakdown and kind of fear thing that goes on, that if you talk about it with people, they may stop and go, holy hell, I've done something like that.
Right, so I guess that part of it gets
not to
this,
solve everything.
Right, it's like necessary but not sufficient kind of idea.
Right, of course. It's not all that's going to have to happen.
I want to talk. I want to play this clip that is sort of famous clip from our esteemed guest Jay Smooth here about sort of how to approach conversations about race, which is a great bit of wisdom. Take a listen.
Oh, Jay.
When somebody picks my pocket, I'm not going to be chasing him down so I can figure out whether he feels like he's a thief deep down in his heart. I'm going to be chasing him down so I can get my wallet back. I don't care what he is, but I need to hold him accountable for what he did. And that's how we need to approach these conversations about race. Treat them like they took your wallet and focus on the part that matters, holding each person accountable for the impact of their words and actions.
I don't disagree.
And this gets to something that the point you're making there, which is that when we talk about conversations about race, rather than saying you are a racist or you like just focus on individual things that happen, right? Like I thought, you know what actually was a model of this? the DOJ report on Ferguson. I thought it was such a great document in that he just said, like, look, here are the numbers empirically.
That's right.
And here are the reasons that you can't, your normal excuses, which is like, well, maybe black people drive worse. It's like, no, actually,
no,
like.
There's a disproportionate amount of
enforcement.
Private, yes.
And it just like went about sort of documenting in this sort of rigorous way that avoided a lot of the.
But Chris, I can't not tease Jay about the kind of like brother way he was taught to talk, and like, hey, with the rap music in the background and like down with the people.
I'm a rap guy.
Yeah, I know, but it's another interesting, funny thing about race. Like there would be some people that feel that you co-opted something like that, and other people might feel like, well, that's his background and that's really cool too.
Yeah, why
These
are
are conversations.
Jay?
If somebody takes my wallet, I mean, it's really interesting since
it's
you weren't
also
talking that way to
interesting
me.
because I'm actually black, but you assumed otherwise. And this is the sort of awkwardness we can look forward to in Starbucks.
Absolutely.
Barista counters coming to you.
But on top of all of that, I am clearly brown skinned, and people are always saying to me, you talk white, you act white, you want to be white, you white. And these are the kind of things that
But the question is, could you have that conversation or about anything around the thermal layers with the person handing you the espresso? I mean, that to me is also
I think that's so unfair to the
poor person who's handing me.
They're already too busy to spell anyone's name correctly on any of the cups, and you expect them to be a diversity trainer in this 2-minute transaction with someone who didn't have their morning coffee yet?
But I have to say, don't you sometimes get into really kind of intimate conversations with somebody over a cup of coffee, even the person that's making it for you? I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I sometimes
I disagree with the notion that any conversation is better than none when it comes to this topic.
Really?
I mean, all you have to do is look at Brad Paisley and LL to see that if you're not going to take the time to inform yourself and do what the DOJ did, which is take time to study and figure out how to discuss this productively, I think some conversation is a recipe for disaster. I think we need to take the time. When you hire someone to work behind the counter at Starbucks, you don't just let them talk to themselves about how to make a cappuccino. You bring in experts to give them structure and a system to do it. I want to know, first of all, why are we delegating this to the lowest rung at Starbucks, first of all?
But
and are we giving them information and training on how to have a productive conversation? I mean, I feel like this is sort of throwing it out there in a haphazard way that is not what we need to cure such a serious issue.
Well, I would take issue because one of the board members of Starbucks is Melody Hobson, and she's one of the few black CEOs, black female CEOs in the country, and she did a wonderful TED Talk about being race brave instead of, being like silent about talking about things. I think she might have had I'd like to think that she had an influence on getting this conversation started.
You sort of buy the general repression narrative, which is like, it's a thing we don't talk about, we should talk about, and any opportunity to push that is actually a net positive.
I wouldn't say push it. I mean, I think it has
No, but I mean, like, push past the boundaries of repression.
I don't see, to me, it's a win-win. I would rather, even if it's sloppy and messy and you have to, like, go, what the hell did so-and-so mean? Let's get something started.
All right, so let me conclude with this tweet from Jay, which is, Starbucks staff in my neighborhood have already spent years doing Nobel-level work of being patient with white people, #RaceTogether. I do think that putting on the shoulders of people who are trying to, like, get, it's
give
just
them
like
a free coupon to the new Jim Crow or slavery by another name and let them take that from there. Asking the barrister to do the education is too much.
Nancy Giles and Jace Booth, thank you for joining us both.
Okay.
All right, that is all in for this evening.